Okay, we're recording. Hi,
Yep.
Heng.
Hello,
Haven't
it's
seen you
me
in a while.
again.
How you
Yeah.
doing? How you doing?
Yeah. Busy with stuff. So many problems. Yeah.
Right, that's why I reached out to you because I noticed that you are really, you're busy. You're really trying to get a message out there, and I thought, hey,
Mhm.
let's talk about it.
Mhm.
So basically, what I'm getting is that I'm actually a bit scared to read a lot of it because I'm like, oh, I hope it's not really happening. But are you saying that Haze is coming back right now? Is that what's going on?
I mean, of
Have you
course,
seen?
if you just go out and look at that, I mean, for those who stay in Malaysia, especially in Sarawak and then in Borneo, you can see like now, I mean, the government's already released the alerts that, yeah, the haze is becoming more serious. I mean, one of the indicator is there are more, lots of the school have to shut down because of these repeated problems, yeah, in Southeast Asia.
So this is East Malaysia, right? You're saying it's
Yep.
more evident. Okay, because actually a couple of months ago, I noticed on my Facebook some friends in KL were complaining about it. They were saying, "Hey, is there haze? Is something going on?" We're okay here in JB. We're not really seeing anything.
Also
If you notice,
depending, because now in the current situations, if we look at the ASMC, the data, there is a transboundary haze, and at the same time, there also a domestic haze. For example, for those who stay in Pengerang, yeah, there are also some pit fire that happening within Malaysia area, and there are
see,
also
okay,
fire in Sumatra and Kalimantan.
got it. Oh, so it's actually like a perfect storm of a few different things going on.
Yep.
Okay, so is it bad? Is it actually quite bad at the moment?
I mean,
Is
very
that what's
serious. I would say very serious because the government, even the news just now, the government already released alerts that they might consider to cancel the Hari Merdeka ceremony because of the transboundary haze
that's
problems.
that's serious. Yeah. I know before we get into it, I see another thing I noticed actually, which is a peeve of mine as well. Is we have flooding problems here in JB, and it
Mhm.
happens every year. Every year it happens. It's not like we don't know anything about it. It's been happening since I came back to Malaysia in 2010, and I noticed it because when I was a kid, Johor Bahru never flooded. We these are all new problems. These are problems because of overbuilding, rainwater, they're stopping rainwater running off. That's why
Mm,
it's flooding. It's because of
mm,
urban development. And it was particularly bad a couple of years ago. My gardeners, their house, the water was up to here. You know, and then in the newspaper, the MP is saying, "Oh, we need to do a study." I'm like, "Why do you need a study? This has been going on for like decades. Why don't you know what to do? Why haven't you done anything?" Is that what the situation is with Hayes? I could sense that that's what you're kind of saying a little bit.
yep. I would say so because this is also one of the main factor that triggered the transboundary haze. Because look at the news a few months ago, the government, I think what we experience right now is a result of several factors that coming together, especially the drought season El Nino, because the El Nino also strengthening the current problem. The
Yeah,
dry weather make the forest fire and peatland the pit fire even worse. And because of the peatland easy to get fire, and the current situation, it make the fire in Sumatra and Kalimantan even worse.
I see. Okay. And so what should have happened between the last time this was a serious problem and now? Because I think the last time I felt that there was some movement was when UBN was trying to get some kind of transboundary agreement going. What happened to that?
Okay, so if we look at the transboundary haze agreements and the law, look back at the history. In 2019, Malaysian government wanted to enact a domestic transboundary haze law to tackle the forest fire, especially to regulate the company that are operating abroad that contribute to fire. That was 2019. And after that,
Okay.
look at the study, and then the cabinet, Malaysian government, the minister all agree that they need to enact this law in February 2020. Unfortunately, one incident happened, which is Lanka Sheraton, the change of government. After the change of government, and when the new leaderships of the government came into power, they dismissed this law. And then after
Okay.
that, we restart the conversations and we keep lobbying the governments to do the same thing. But that time, the trans-boundary haze was not that serious compared with
Right.
2015 and
Yeah.
2019. And now, Malaysian governments, I mean, last year under the former minister, Nik Nazmi leadership, he also mentions that his ministry is not totally closing the door. There's still some space or open the door to talk about this transboundary haze law. Reason is because Malaysian some part. I mean, there were two types of opinion. First, some government officials think that the ASEAN ways of working is still the way forward. But from our side, we think that ASEAN ways of working is still not enough. I mean, the government can continue to have a cooperations with other ASEAN countries. At the same time, this is also opportunity for Malaysian government or Malaysian company to prove that they are not causing transboundary haze and now. Why? Look at the current conversation among the netizen. When transboundary haze and forest fire happens, sometimes you can see like the Indonesian, the citizen, even the governments themselves also blaming that Malaysians and Singaporean government, the company are also involved. That's why transboundary
Right.
haze are not just Indonesia's problem. It's a cross-border. Yeah. So the way to
Yeah.
move forward is an opportunity to prove that we need a responsible businesses. So having the transboundary haze
Okay.
law
Let me
is an
unpack that a
opportunity
bit
to prove
because
that.
it's a bit complicated. So one
Mm.
is we're trying to establish some kind of formal legal agreement between the countries, right? So this is
Yep.
what the 19 thing was. And you're saying that it just got shoved aside when we had a political change, and it's never come back onto the table. So we're
Yep.
now, yes, desperate to get that back onto the table. And then you're saying is if we follow the ASEAN route, how often, how does that work? I mean, ASEAN doesn't even get together except for how many, every 4 years or something? When is the transaction between the ASEAN countries happening?
Okay. ASEAN's they have a committee to deal with this transboundary haze works. For example, they have a ASEAN's agreement of the transboundary haze, which means each country they have a working group to discuss about the ongoing transboundary haze problem, not just in Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, but also Thailand, Cambodia, and other Mekong's area, because the transboundary haze all are Southeast Asia problems. So, which
Sure.
means what they want to do is also like sharing data, sharing information, sharing the alerts, being fire alerts, and cooperation, which means sharing data and work it together. But at the same time, ASEAN, that is the
Ongoing.
tricky part. Yeah, that's the tricky part because ASEAN's ways of working, they have a principle called non-interference, which means they can only collaborate. They don't talk about legally binding. They don't talk about the accountabilities work, and this also makes ASEAN's way of working is not ineffective. And transboundary haze happened for more than I mean until now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to sort of figure out is actually okay, they might be talking to each other, but the formality of them getting together and making a decision, because those are all publicity stunts as well. They get together and they say, oh yeah, we've agreed to this, this, and this. And that is also following a certain kind of timeline, is every few years. So it's not something that's being solved as the problems arise, right? Yeah. And then as you are about to get into, there's another complicated issue is that even though these things happening in different countries, our own companies are actually actively involved in those other countries. Like there are Malaysian corporations in Indonesia causing problems, Singapore companies in Indonesia causing these problems. Explain a little bit about how that's going. Has that changed? Is it still is this still problematic? How do we control that?
Okay. From our side, I think since a few years ago, I mean, Greenpeace published a few reports highlighting that these transboundary haze are linked to many plantations company. I mean, not just palm oil industry, but also pulp and paper industry. Why all these problems? Why mostly happen in because there are lots of the investor, especially the plantation industry, they are operating in that area in Sumatra and Kalimantan, and a lot of
Sure.
these plantation happen in peatland. Peatland we call Dana Gambut, and peatland if we plant do the plantations I mean in peatlands, it will cause the destructions and it will easily to get fire. So the situations right now is the plantation company, they need to reflect the peatland, they need to protect the current peatland. Otherwise, it will easily to get fire. So after that, we collect lots of information. We publish a report to highlight that how many commitment by the different company from different country and their commitment to the policy called NDP, also known as no deforestation, no peat, no exploitation. Unfortunately, not all the supply chains are making the commitment, and they are not on track. That's why the problem are still happening right now.
So who polices that commitment? So, for example, is Singapore policing the Singapore companies and Malaysia policing the Malaysian companies, or what's happening? Is that what's going on?
From our side, as the environmental group, we work closely with the local community to collect the information and publish the reports. And then what we did was also like compare the data published there by the company themselves, so that we make sure that the data are aligned. The way to do it is like we have to whenever there's a fire happens, we need to know that what is the measurement or what is the preventive measure that taken by the company themselves to reduce the problems. So that is some of the works that we are doing right now. Especially when fire happen, we also deploy a team to do the firefighting.
So, if there is a problem, for example, is there a difference between a Malaysian company and a Singapore company in the sense that do they get punished if something goes wrong, that they're not doing the right thing?
Thing will get complicated, especially if the government punish the company. They are not, I mean, not their citizen. Let me take example. If an Indonesian government hold Indonesian company accountable, there's no issue. But a few years back, there was one situation where the Singapore actions taken by Singapore government. Singapore has a transboundary haze law, and that time Singapore want to arrest an Indonesian CEO based in Singapore, and it caused a diplomatic tensions. Then
Yeah.
it caused, when I say diplomatic tensions, something like the Indonesian government they say like, hey, why do you arrest my citizen, so-called for causing fire? So it also
Yeah.
caused Indonesians, I mean the diplomatic tension. So the transboundary law that we are proposing is each country can regulate their own citizen, their own company. So if, for example, if Malaysian company regulate Malaysian own company, then there should be no issue of interference.
So the law is specific to their own citizens and their own companies.
Yeah.
But then the efficiency of how they manage that is also going to be different. Maybe Singapore is going to be a bit stronger, Malaysia is going to be less strong. I don't know. It's
Yep. Okay, I
underneath
think also
surface.
an interesting point. Another example is the pulp and paper company APP. APP
Right.
last time they were charged because of linking to deforestation and causing the linking to transboundary haze. And because of that incident, Singapore government take down their company's product in Singapore in the supermarket. And because of that, that also caused some of the economic loss for the company itself. So, which means it caused some reputational risk for the big company themselves. If I were a big company, of course, I need to do whatever I can to protect my reputation. So, this can
Right.
be also a deterrence. So, the moment a company was investigated by government for causing haze, this is also it can be a deterrence that okay, every country moving forward, every
Okay, you're freezing up, so I'm going to have to rewind you a little bit in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, you're back. Okay, I lost you
Yeah.
for the last
Mm.
minutes. So let's go
Oh.
back to that. I wonder if is the Singapore government stricter than the Malaysian government about things like this? Just to get a sense of where we are.
From Singapore side, at least Singapore government they have a transboundary haze law, and Malaysia's
They have
we
that
do not have
law, which
law.
okay, got it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What about Indonesia? Does Indonesia have a law governing this?
No, I mean Indonesia have no such law.
Okay. So really, I mean, we need to be doing better about this from a like an international policy kind of thing as well, because this is quite a big deal. I mean, this is quite an important problem that we are dealing with. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, so I mean, I get a sense that Singapore is working a bit harder about this. It's being stricter with its own folk, and there's their citizens, their corporations are going to be more worried about causing these problems, right? So we
Yeah.
need our country to do better in this. I want to. So what is new that you've said actually is this sort of paper products and what's it, paper mills, and what did you
Yeah.
say?
Pulp and paper.
Pulp and paper. Because we usually relate this to palm oil. How does the pulp and paper thing work? How are they? Is it because they're doing the same thing? They're slashing and burning to regrow their forest?
Oh, I mean in Southeast Asia, especially Sumatra and Indonesia, the plantations involved in the peatlands in Indonesia, not just also involve mostly palm oil industry and also pulp and paper industry. So I want pulp and paper, palm oil, they are not the problem. Problem is deforestation. And we also have come up with positions paper to highlight that all these plantations are not the problem. Is depending how they grow their product. So against palm oil, pulp and paper is not the problem. Problem is deforestation. And palm oil, pulp and paper can be done without trashing the current rainforest.
But just to explain, I don't think people understand how pulp and paper is done. What they do is they are harvesting fast-growing trees, right? So
Yep.
they're growing forest quickly so that they have a quick supply, right? Isn't that what it
Yep.
is?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. All right. So all right, policy is not that great. So governance is not that great in this situation. Um, what do you think is the potential timeline of getting anywhere with this? Like, how does this work? Are we? Uh, is there any ability to move in a way that can actually in the next year? Do you think that might happen, or are we still pushing for them to do it?
Current situations, we all know that Brunei, Malaysia, and also Indonesia closely put ourselves in partnership with this pressing issue. We have to focus on ASEAN's to deal with transboundary hate. However, from our side, this is not enough because without addressing corporate accountability, without a legally binding measure, the
Yeah,
we keep emphasizing the importance of promoting a
you're already
global
breaking up. Can you hear me?
yeah.
Can you hear me? You're already breaking up. I can't hear you at all.
Hello, hello.
Okay, now okay. Now better. You're
Yeah,
frozen.
where was I?
Okay, now you're better. Now you're back. It keeps you keep going in and out, unfortunately. Um, okay, you're back. You're back. Okay.
Okay.
Good. The screen is better.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, I was asking you about the timeline. What do you think the potential timeline is if as we move towards a solution? Is this going to take years?
Of course, this will take is a political will. I mean, from Malaysian government side, in
Yeah.
2019, Malaysian governments can want to do it, but because of the change of government, they have to dismiss it. Now it's time for Malaysian government to recall, to rethink, to enact this law. It's an
Okay.
opportunity to
So let's talk
hello.
about the Malaysian government. So let's talk about the Malaysian government. Where are we now? Who's in charge, and is he doing the right thing?
Okay,
He's supposed to
currently
be.
now Malaysian government haven't had a conversations to enacting the law. That is also why we as an environmental organization we need to keep pushing that because the government now is
Yeah.
using ASEAN ways of working, but we want to highlight that we need a legally binding measure such as enacting a domestic law.
So it's the Minister of Environment is responsible for this.
Yep, correct.
Okay, who is that? Who's that guy? Who?
After Joseph, I think from Sabah.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. All right. So we have some new players. We have a problem with the policy side of it. Um, I mean, you know, I don't understand how we can push for it because they don't seem to be. I mean, apart from Greenpeace, actually, I don't see anyone else really working on this in terms of an NGO. There's no real activity in this space, and people are actually not very aware of the issues that I think mainly, as you said earlier, is that it sort of disappeared for a few years, and we kind of forgot about it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So really, what we needed to have happened is that in the background, we have a hardworking government that still keeps on going and fixes this so that it doesn't happen, right? And that really hasn't been happening.
Yep.
We've not seen that happen. Yeah. Okay, let me ask you about another part of this. One of the things that you were very involved with when that first round of problems was actually the measure of the problem. You were really trying to change the machinery that was capturing the information because it was not getting the right particle size and all that kind of stuff. Where are we now about that?
You mean like this to deal with this transboundary haze work?
Yeah, do you remember when you were trying to change the actual the air quality reading meters
Oh, yep.
because they just weren't capturing the problem,
Mm.
right? They weren't fine-tuned enough to really capture the scale of the problem. They were calculating particle size that was a lot bigger or something like that.
Okay, this is also another measurement of air pollutants. For your information, Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia, they have a different methodology or measure the index of measurement. For example, in Malaysia, we are using API, the air pollution index. Singapore, they have using PSI, and Indonesia also using a different measurement. For example, if you look at the news in like the pollutions in air pollution in Singapore, you might see like some of the reading are unhealthy, but maybe it shows healthy in near Singapore Johor area. So this is also because the government are using different methodology because using different methodology, different the index, then the government will act differently based on the different reading. So that is also quite tricky. So from our side, we are also pushing for standardizing the air quality index so that every country can act according to the index. So that is the methodology on that. Yeah.
So right now, Singapore is the most finely tuned. That the way they are measuring is the most finely tuned. They are seeing it at a more fine-tuned level. Is that what you're saying? And not in Malaysia?
Yep, correct.
Hmm.
No, no.
What about Indonesia, how are they? Is their calculations like Malaysia or worse, or where are we with that?
This one, from what I know, they want to standardize it, but I think I haven't heard any latest news yet, so I can't comment on that.
Okay. All right. Okay, so
Mm.
that's another problem. Is actually how we're measuring it is an issue, right?
Yeah,
Damn. Okay.
yeah, another problem.
Are we collecting any data about how it's affecting us? Do you know what I mean? It's like it's been going on for years now. I mean, sometimes people get more pressure when they know, oh, this is causing these problems. We're getting the a spike in health matters or stuff like that. Is that something that is happening at all? Are we looking at that kind of data at all?
Even now, just 2 days ago, the data released by Ministry of Health also quite useful because Ministry of Health themselves, Malaysian Ministry of Health, saying that the air pollutions are, I mean, the caused by transboundary haze is getting more serious. So that is also the reasons why they have an announcement that they have to shut down certain schools because of the air pollution. So I will say like the government is like looking on that measure, but at the same time, we would like to also emphasize on the preventive measure. The preventive, such as like how do we address the problem at the source? How do we prevent more company or people to cause more fire, especially in this El Nino, this drought season? We cannot
Mm.
keep saying that when haze is bad and the government only can give advice to work from home, to stay at home, because not everyone have a luxury or privilege to work from home, especially those like frontliner, like food delivery person, like the hawkers. They still have to work outside despite the increased air pollution. So this to address that, I would prefer like to address the problem at the source. So that's why we come up the three solutions. The first one is still go back to restoring and protecting the remaining peatland, protect the remaining the peat forest. The second one is a company need to act on their policy, NDPE policy, and demand the same to their supplier. The third one is what I mentioned just now. We need a domestic transboundary haze law to ensure that all companies to operate in a responsible manner.
So let's take that apart a little bit. So the transboundary haze law, would you say that that should be something in a manifesto for the next election? Is that an important issue enough
I mean,
to say?
it must be. Even the previous, the Pakistan governments, they have that. We need to emphasize that because haze transboundary is not just an environmental issue. It costs I would say it's a economic and health issue because
Yeah,
imagine this year we are having a visit Malaysia year. Can you
yeah,
imagine how many people will choose not to come to Malaysia because of the transboundary haze? How many economic loss because of the transboundary haze?
yeah, yeah. And I wonder if we had more data about health outcomes, like how it's actually affecting people. I mean, we oh, okay. Wow, you got a unstable line in KL here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, okay, my interest is also is like obviously we can wait until the minister does something right for us, which is actually a kind of a helpless kind of situation for us.
Mm,
I
mm,
kind of want to make sure that as a citizen we understand that we may not be able to do something right now, but we this needs to go into our calculation for getting your vote, getting my vote, you know, which is why I want to say it should be part of it must be part of a manifesto. I must hear that in the next round of elections, it's in a manifesto that says we are going to fix this. We are going to have a transboundary haze policy, right? It's going to
yep.
be a priority for us to work with our neighbors. I mean, and really, it's it's really two main neighbors. It's Singapore and Indonesia. That's really the where this needs to be solved. I mean, how difficult is it to come to some kind of agreement on that, especially when all three of us are affected by it? we are directly affected. It's not as if one causes it and someone else gets it and nobody else. We are all. The problem is it's actually quite interrelated. It's actually corporate greed. It's also about non-compliance. Actually, which I wanted to ask you, when you say protecting the peatland, what exactly do we need to do? Are we trying? Do we need to say that you can't be planting in peatland? Is that what the solution is for this?
Yep, I think yeah, another good point because the peatlands contains a lot of water. I mean, peatland is wet original form. Is I take example like mangrove swamp. Mangrove is part of the peatland. Can you imagine if the peatland has dry for the plantations, the water will be removed. I mean, will be dry. When the water is wet, when the peatland is dry, it will easily to get fire. So long story
Mm.
short, peatland is something original form of peatland is something like a charcoal that put inside the water. But because of a man-made drain peatland, it will easily get fire because it turned back into a charcoal. So when the weather is dry, if someone just throw a cigarette there, we easily to get fire. That is the situation right now. Indonesia and Malaysia and many countries that also has lots of peatland. When the peatlands are drained from the monocrops, it will easily get fire. So what we need to do is to restore the existing land, which means the company that involved in the destruction, they have to reflood the peatland, meaning that they have to make sure the land have the water, yeah, so that it will not get fire.
So they have to fix if they're already okay. So they have to fix the problem where they are, right? Where they are, they have to fix. They have to reflood it, etc. Then there also should be restrictions, or you can't do any more. You can't be using any more peatland. Is that right?
Yep.
Would that be
Mm.
say? Okay. And then my other thing that I would say is most of the palm oil that we're creating palm oil, they're going into snacks. They're not going to like real food that is actually food that we
Mm.
need to eat. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yep.
it's all going into actually things that are bad for us, that are making us sick, making us obese. So there also needs to be a connected governmental policy that understands that, we also have to understand like we can't just keep servicing capitalists to make money from making people sick like that. So that's one thing. The other thing is paper. We live in a digital world. What the hell are we using so much? Why do we need so much paper? There must be other solutions to this as well. Right?
Yeah.
Is that what are people talking about? When it comes to this, like,
I would say that because now we are living in the capitalistic world, and especially
right?
because of the fast moving consumerism, we were told to use more, spend more to make our life easier. But we also missing the point of the environmental cost. The moment we use more, overuse, and waste more resources, we are also putting more damage to the environment. The transboundary
Yeah,
haze is one of the example. So the question
yeah,
it comes back that to this that there are some certain group they want to use to boycott palm oil, to boycott all these papers, all this. But from our side as an environmental group, we want to highlight that all these palm oil, all these products are not is not the problem. Again, it's the consumerism, the corporate greeds who exploit the environment. They are the problems.
yeah. But actually, as a citizen, I think citizens also need to understand is supply only happens when there's demand. If you're not demanding it, they're not going to supply it. So there
Yeah.
must be some kind of literacy to understand that. If you keep demanding fried snacks, which are fried in palm oil, this problem is going to continue. So
Yep.
if you want to be part of the solution, you should also be considering
Mm.
how you are participating in this entire equation, right? Uh, so I mean, you're right, because palm oil is actually an incredibly efficient, low cost fat,
Mm.
which is useful for food and for cheap food and stuff like that. But it really doesn't make sense that it's also going into a lot of snack type foods, which is
Yep.
actually a lot of obesity and overeating and things like that. And that's driven by, I mean, it's driven by a capitalistic drive that is, our our urban areas are just full with shops like 911s, which are just full of these kind of foods. They're not healthy foods. They're not really good for you. They're actually in the top 10 reasons why Malaysians die. You know, we die of obesity,
Mm.
we die of heart condition. We know these are all things that kill us. So we have to be aware of that. And then the other thing is actually this transition to, this notion of paper use is a little bit crazy. I mean, obviously, toilet paper is one of them. I mean, I really try not to buy it because there is a solution. You can buy a water gun. You can make, quite a large percentage of us use this water gun. You need to transition to that.
Mm.
And avoid that. Do you need to be printing stuff? No, you don't need to be printing stuff anymore. There's digital. You really got to move with the world and actually stop to be part of the problem as well, right?
Yep.
I would. And then the third part of the participation is you got to participate in the political process that punishes and rewards the politicians that are willing or unwilling to do the hard work of solving these problems. You know, so we saw Yobi Yin in 2019 actively trying to solve this problem that got shelved, and no one has picked it up since. Right? That's basically what you're saying, right?
Yep.
Um, with it doesn't seem as if there's anyone in the horizon willing to pick it up again either. You know, so our only option as a citizen is now to start pushing for this to be in the next government. The next government must include in its manifesto and must have a environmental minister that is clear that it is part of his agenda, right? And then I think there's also an international policy agenda here. We've got to be better at working with our neighbors than we obviously are, about solving the issue because yes, it's complex, but that's why we pay your cabinet ministers 300,000 ringgit a year to do your job, because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to just solve these problems, right? You know, you don't just go
Yeah.
to a working committee, gab on all day. It's like you got to have some results, right?
Mm. Yeah. So yeah, it's a
Um,
long struggle. Yeah, long battle.
are you guys the only ones working on this? Because I really only see Greenpeace being the most vocal about this.
I would say that there are different groups. For example, like in Singapore, we have a group called People Movement to Stop Haze, and they are also the
Yeah.
group that championing like advocating to use responsible palm oil. I think that one is a consumer perspective. There are I mean we have different environmental groups who are also working on that. It's also the only thing is like Greenpeace always act as a bad cop, which means like we question pressure government, and meanwhile we have other environmental group also sit down with the government in the discussions to also cooperate discussions, have an interactive discussions to see how do we deal with that. So there are, I would say like it's not just us as Greenpeace, but there are many organizations are still working on that. It's a long term battle to deal with this transboundary haze problem.
What What about, this is something that a consumer can do, right? I can make better choices about the kinds of palm oil that I buy,
Mm,
which is actually quite difficult. When you go to a supermarket, it's actually very difficult to buy anything but palm oil because it's not
mm,
even called palm oil, it's called vegetable oil, right?
yep.
Or
Mm,
it's a blended vegetable oil. So if you're buying a blended vegetable, you've probably got palm oil in it. So if I want to make a better choice, the only way I can do it is actually if I start to choose maybe something, and I don't know where we are at with that anymore, is what's happening with things like RSPO. Can we choose a better palm oil where the company involved is working harder to make sure they're doing the right thing? Is that
yep.
actually a thing?
Yep.
Is RSPO actually still actively is an active agent in this space?
I would say the RSPO represent the biggest palm oil sustainable palm oil the industry, including the banker and other fast moving consumer goods company. The tricky part is there are a lot of the company are still linking to deforestation, which means it's still not perfect. I would say it's a good progress, but not perfect. So moving forward, there will also we have a palm oil innovation charter called POIG under RSPO. That is it represents the best standard of growing palm oil at the same time protecting the remaining forest. That is the golden standard that we need to do. So far, there are
So
not many members are on board. Yeah.
can the consumer identify that standard? Is it
Oh
on
yeah, can.
several?
I can share
Oh,
with you the links later so you can
okay.
see which company are involved.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we should be active in the solution as much as we can, right? Because it really is about our choices as well. At the end of the day. What about
Yep.
paper? What about paper? Is there ways of Are there similar rules around paper? I see it's getting a lot better. Like I don't buy them. I don't print anything anymore. But I've looked at paper. Every now and again I will buy sheet of paper because when we do like kids programs, we need a bit of paper for them to draw and stuff like that. And I see more and more of these paper companies have got some kind of standardization of uh, how they're using forests and stuff like that. I mean, I haven't really looked too hard at it. Are you aware of anything like that?
There's a group called Forest Stewardship Council (FSC). So
That's
that is
right.
also something like certified groups. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can recommend to say, your average consumer, make sure at least you've got that on your printed paper because at least we know they're doing better, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't know if they do that with toilet paper. I know they
Mm-mm.
do it with printed paper, but I don't know if they do it with toilet paper. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So, anything else you want to talk about with regarding the Haze issue?
I think no. Maybe I can just share with you the links after that regarding the palm oil innovation group that is representing
So
the best standard. Yeah.
mainly you want to make sure people understand there's a problem going on. That you want them alerted to the fact that we are dealing with a problem, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I actually let's pivot a little bit because before this before this you were working on some orang asli work, right?
Yeah.
What were you guys doing there?
We
Where
work
did they
closely with the Orang Asli groups. I mean, to push for the recognitions of the Dana Adat, the customary lands.
Okay. Okay. And where
Mm,
are we with that? Where are we
yep.
with that?
Mm.
Oh, are we anywhere with that? Are we able to? Are we just talking about it?
We organize people to attend to when to do a protest in Putrajaya. At the same time, we follow up. We organize some land right and legal workshops together with the bar councils and many things, many workshops. So now we need to finalize the documents, and then we will follow up from that. Well, based on the feedback from the community leaders.
So are we waiting for a law to pass, a bill to pass before that can happen?
That one we are still finalizing, so we will let the indigenous people leader to lead that kind of campaign.
So they will develop a sort of a working paper, so to speak, like what do they want, right? They have
Yep,
to
correct.
ask for it, and then they
Yep.
will go to. So which ministry would they work with to actually make
They
that
work with
happen?
the rural development ministry.
Okay, all right. So that's another
Yeah.
thing that we need to keep our eyes on to make sure that you know. So okay, I mean, another. I, I don't know if you're seeing this in KL, but my friend who runs a Rohingya school there has had to close it down because actually there is so much negativity with them right now that
Mhm.
this is actually a bit of an issue right now. We have which we don't have laws around. We didn't sign the refugee conventions, so people, uh, so there's no real law governing how they behave with this stuff, you know. And
Yeah.
and then there's actually just very poor information about. I mean, I work with refugees, and refugees do jobs that Malaysians would never want to do. You know,
Yeah.
almost everyone who cuts the grass on the side of the road is probably a Rohingya right now. You know,
Mm.
even
Yeah.
Bangladeshis do it, and you know, that's what the Bangladeshis used to do. But the Bangladeshis now have moved into the property development. They've become
Mm.
so much more skilled. So now they
Mm.
actually create small cooperatives and businesses because
Mm.
they are builders, and you know they can do more specialized work. They're not going to be cutting. They're not cutting grass anymore. You know.
Mm. Yeah.
So, okay,
Mm.
so what else? What else have you guys been working on? So recently you had that big um, protest with the Orang Asli. Now you're working with Haze. Anything else?
We also published a documentary about the Putra Height explosion. Remember,
What's
like
that?
last year there was the gas pipeline, the Putra Height. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's going on?
So we published the documentary, and after 1 year, we highlight that the concerns raised by the community leader, that the thing like we need to demand a better accountability.
So this is which industry is involved in this? This is
I
oil and
mean, oil
gas.
and gas industry, and also the governments, local governments, and etc. So that's why I can share with you the link. We produced a 30 minutes documentary about this. You can watch
Okay.
on. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think these
Mm.
are all issues that I would like to see a voter get more interested in because you know we this is not a football game with politics now, as we can see. You know, we're not choosing our we shouldn't be just choosing our favorite party right now. It should be the ones that are willing to fix problems, you know.
Mm.
And I mean, you've seen how politics has been going in Johor. You know, we recently had the state elections, and
Mm.
Harrison won by a landslide. You know, which tells you that you know we are not happy with how things have uh, been working since 2018. You know, uh, since the
Mm.
you know we don't see the improvements that we thought we were going to get. You know,
Mm.
what's what
Yeah.
about
More
Selangor?
work need to be done. Yeah.
What about Selangor? Is it the same?
What do you mean? The Selangor in which?
In Johor, we saw a real shift in political, uh, in, where we decided that we wanted to
Okay.
punish.
I would say overall, yeah, overall we need a check and balance. That's why we have to tell. I mean, we want to highlight that to support to those policymaker who are pro to environments instead of just pro business.
Right. I mean, that's one of our big problems, which the government seems to be working with businesses more than it is to solving problems for the citizenry, right? So,
Yeah.
what we're living in a different age now. You know, we live in a digital age. There's AI. There's portals. How is the access for the citizen to policymakers now? Is it changing? Like, are you guys? How do you guys work with policymakers? Are they hostile to you? Because you kind of said you're like the bad cop. Will they
Yeah.
even talk to you? I mean, are they interested in what you have to say?
I would say depending on what issue. For example, like
Okay.
we also have a plastic campaign and we work closely with ministry on the plastic issue. And whereas maybe the works linked to corporate accountability, such as the palm oil, transboundary haze, sometimes different government officials they have a different approach. I mean the perspective on this. Sometimes there will
Mm,
be see NGO like us, we are anti-development, but at the same time, some government officials they will change their shift their minds. They're saying like, okay, this is also good for for better business, responsible business, also good for future ESG and SDG.
Mm, mm. Yeah, that is also, citizens also have to demand that a little bit. We actually got to know that we want this sort of better situation. Because I think we also see like a lot of these things which are not that great, which is a lot of urban development and a lot of plantation. We see this also as a prosperity, so we actually see it as a positive. When in reality, we also have to see we got to make sure that that prosperity is managed. It's that, and that's where the government comes in. We really need them to be, they are the police in this situation. They're the ones that make the laws, hold them responsible to make sure that they're following the laws, and also educating the public about how to do better with uh, that we are not causing all the problems. I mean, public health, our health problems are largely driven by uh, not infectious disease, but sort of self-inflicted problems. Like smoking, uh, overeating. Even driving cars causes problems for us. So we should be demanding better public transport, greener cities, this kind of thing, and that's actually how we generally improve our outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, honestly, Haze, recently you did gas explosion. Anything else?
And also plastic.
Okay. So that's interesting because you guys were really the bad guys a few years ago about plastic because that's what
Mm.
you are. You're raising the alarm. But then now and I think that's what I'm getting at is once you start to see, hey, this is a problem. And I think like plastics actually became a problem when we started to when information about microplastics emerged. People
Mm.
started to say, God, it's going in our bodies. It's not just creating landfills, it's actually going into our bodies and killing us. So now we're starting to get worried about plastic and we're actually willing to do things. And we're starting to see corporations change behavior. Like there's no supermarket that uses a plastic bag anymore. You know,
Mm.
you just don't see it anymore. You have to buy a non-woven bag now. So these are all real changes. So you're now at the tail end of that, where you're seeing the success of that work, right?
Mm.
Is it measurable? Can you see that it's actually becoming more containable? How is the
I would say
government?
so. I would say so. Now the Ministry of Environment also start to implement some uh, how to say I would say sanctions, but some moratorium or some expand the zone, no plastic zone. For example, some national park, marine park that will try to push for no
Okay,
single-use plastic area.
okay,
So
that's
all these
great.
things are the
Yeah.
good efforts. Yeah, and we need to do more.
Okay, excellent.
Mm.
Uh, so what else did I didn't really get the full detail about those air quality machinery that you were changing. Did they change to the better quality one in
Uh,
Malaysia?
Now, government used to take the PM10, and just few years back they used revise it to PM2.5, which is the updated versions.
So it has been updated. So
Yeah.
they're now capturing a different kind of data. Okay, that's good to know.
Mm-mm.
Okay, I think we're kind of there.
Mm-mm.
So I'm good to see that they're keeping you hard. They're keeping you hard at work in
Yeah.
going
Let's
into the
stay
haze.
hopeful. Yeah, not easy, but stay hopeful. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Heng. Thank you for doing this today,
Yep.
and
Yep. Thank
take care.
you. Right.
And I'll talk
Okay.
to you
Bye.
soon. Take care. Bye.